Hey everyone, I'm in Southeast Virginia today visiting farmers in the field. Soybeans are still being harvested. There's some cotton still being harvested. This time of year, whether a farmer's finished or still in the combine, is when there's a lot of assessments being made. New products and new systems and new fertilities and new new equipment are being tested in the field, and usually during harvest is when farmers are making their assessments, whether it worked or where it didn't work, whether they liked it, whether they're going to invest in it again. And very often I see that this period of assessments can be very emotionally driven. And I understand it, because what a farmer sees in the field and what impact that has on future investments can be the difference in making money, not making money, growing the business, or even losing the farm. And so I understand there's a lot of emotion tied to some of these decisions, and nobody's taking it lightly. However, I see that a lot of combine assessments are not always the most accurate assessments. I've seen time and time again where a decision is made at harvest or in the combine based off of what a farmer sees in the field that ends up costing them money in the future because of the experience that they had. I'm going to give you a few examples. And so I want to really relay the message that the experiences that we have during harvest often influence future decisions. And as long as these assessments are based on accurate information, we can continue to grow and make wise decisions and good future investments. If the decisions are not based on accurate information and can be misleading, that can lead to poor management decisions in the future. So it's very easy for me to see this with corn hybrids because there's so many variables out there. I'll use a common example where somebody tries a new product, whether it's corn, soybeans, or a wheat variety, or whatever it is. They try a little bit of it, put it on a farm, and at harvest they make their assessment. And often you'll see where a farmer is jumping up and down about it, or they're cold about it during their harvest and their assessment period. And rarely do I see somebody making a true side-by-side comparison. So on my home farm in Eastern Virginia this year, I had two different fields. They were separated by about a quarter of a mile distance. One was on the south side, one was on the north side. All the corn was planted within the same week. I had everything from a 103-day to 119-day in the trials. But there was a 25 bushel difference between the north side and the south side. Had this been a situation where I was comparing two different products or two different systems, it would have been very easy for me to assume that the north side, that was 20 bushels less, was just underperforming and not something that I wanted to invest in moving forward. However, every rain event we had this year would build on the south side and lose steam on the north side, even though it was a very close proximity. It totaled 5 inches of rain over the course of the growing season, which is significant, and it added up to 25 bushels. And so just a quarter mile difference, even on the same farm, everything was planted the same, can make that big of a difference. And so it's very easy for a farmer to do the same thing when he's comparing different products or fertility or chemistry, because there's so much variability even within one field. And so we have to be very careful about how we assess and how we make our decisions. Another example is pollination. You'll have a product that pollinates 2 weeks earlier than something, and whether a lot of times the winning hybrid, the one that performs the best, is going to have a better season during that pollination period. If you pollinate more kernels, you have more yield potential. And so pollination stress can make a big difference in this, and pulling the husk back and seeing that there was a pollination issue with one doesn't mean that product was inferior. It meant that something challenged that hybrid at that particular time. And if they weren't pollinating at the same time, you can't really compare. Lodging, soybeans falling down, corn falling down. There was a grower last year that, to be honest with you, had the very best product in the marketplace and had a wind event come through, and he had about 25% lodging in his field. The hybrid he has some of the best roots and stalks and overall standability that I've ever seen. But he believed that it had poor standability because he saw it lodge. Had he had other products in the field where this wind event occurred, he would have had a better assessment. But he didn't purchase that particular product this past year, which would have easily offered him more profitability than anything else he purchased. So it kept him from making a good decision moving forward because of an inaccurate assessment. There's so many variables that go into this, and I encourage producers to really look at this stuff with a fine-tooth comb and take into account all the variabilities that go into yield when they're making these assessments, because it can make a big difference on your bottom line. And if I have a product or a system that I believe in, that I know works, that a customer has a average experience with or even a poor experience with, I'm not just going to move on to something new in the upcoming year and promote something new because they had a bad experience. If it works, I'm going to promote the very best tools for my customers. And too often I see people just jump into something different because they had a bad experience the first time. And a lot of times that bad experience doesn't mean that it's an inferior product or system. It just means that it was a bad experience. And so the decisions that we make are based on the assessments we have during the growing season and during harvest. Let's just make sure that these assessments are accurate and based off of a level playing field. And I'd love to work with you and help you walk through some of these things. If you have questions or concerns, I'd love to talk to you about it.